Hey guys, it's been a rough year for all our crypto bros out there, and for those also in the stock market, and those buying NFTs, and those also in the digital real estate market. It's been a rough year all around. So a lot of people in the real estate market are wondering, well, am I next? And I addressed this concept in my last video, so if you guys haven't checked it out, I'll put it up here so you guys can take a look at it. But ultimately what this video is going to be about is looking at all these market crashes and understanding what happened and why it happened. So it has been a rough year for digital assets. Bitcoin has almost valued more than 71% since 1 year ago, where it was nearing almost $60,000 and now sits at around $16,000. Bitcoin was trending downwards, and then, you've probably heard of it, the FTX fiasco happened.
One of the largest exchanges in the world, FTX, collapsed this week after a chain reaction set off by a leaked document that raised questions about the company's finances. The sales sent FTT prices plummeting. $6 billion, that's how much investors sold off over a 3-day period.
Rough. Ethereum, the second most popular crypto coin, has similarly devalued more than 72% since where it was a year ago. It currently sits at about $1,100, where it used to sit at $4,000 in November of 2021. NFTs share a similar story. Justin Bieber was recently in the news. His Bored Ape NFT was recently in the spotlight, and in January of 2022, this year, he paid $1.3 million for that NFT. And at the time, these NFTs had a floor purchase price, or they still do, and it can vary according to the market. In April of 2022, that floor purchase price to get in was $429,000. And now most recently, in November of 2022, $69,000. $1.3 million to $69,000 reflects a devaluation of a bit over 94%. That's a rough drop. Digital real estate across the metaverse, Decentraland, the Sandbox, and other platforms have also had similar troubles. You guys have heard of digital real estate. This has been around for a while. I think I first ran into it when I was playing some MMORPGs when I was in high school. There was one in particular, I forget much about it, but you start out with collecting sweat. I know people were buying like nightclubs in the game and that kind of thing. I played it for a little bit, way over my head. But I guess it was kind of cool.
Before games started using blockchain technology in 2017 to make players feel more secure in buying virtual goods, of the top 5 most expensive virtual items ever sold in the history of games, all 5 were from Entropia Universe. They were a planet, a nightclub, a moon, a space station, and a very, 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 very fancy egg.
In any case, WeMeta is a data analytics site for this type of digital land, and it shows similar massive drops in valuation for digital real estate. At the end of November 2021, the average real estate price per square meter, so that was a year ago about, was $70 on Decentraland, and now the average price is sitting at around $650. That devaluation is about 91%. Rough. The Twitter takeover is another example of devaluating digital assets or property. I thought this was kind of interesting because there's few people out there that made a lot of money in the early internet days buying domain names and then selling them. That phenomenon kind of happened on Twitter again, where people were buying up Twitter handles and then selling them. For example, Drew Carey, he donated $1 million so he could have the @Drew account. So for some people, these handles are worth a lot of money, and that space on that site, such a big site like Twitter, is worth a lot of money to the right people. Now, after the Twitter takeover by Elon Musk, who's to say how much value there is left in those handles, especially after the blue checkmark fiasco that caused the Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, to lose reported billions in stock value after an account impersonating that company tweeted that it would make insulin free to those who needed it. So apparently some stockholders, now, I'm not sure if that's actually what happened, but the story is that some stockholders, or a lot of them, did not like to hear that news, and so in response, that stock also tanked. Likewise, Lockheed Martin, in similar fashion, experienced a dip in its stock price after, which reportedly translated to billions of dollars in value again, after a fake account started tweeting that Lockheed would halt all weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the U.S. after further investigation into its human rights abuses. So that was also a rough one. But ultimately, what the point of these stories are, all of these, from crypto to NFTs to digital real estate to digital asset or digital property space on certain sites such as Twitter, is it brings into question how these things are valued. And it's now reasonably questionable how valuable Twitter handles are after this massive change in management at Twitter and what the future holds for, one of the largest social media platforms. Similar worries are impacting the real estate market, with some speculating a similar 2008 style crash in the real estate and stock markets, especially after December 14th, when interest rates are due to rise after the Feds have their meeting.
Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Now, I've talked about this and why I think the market won't crash for real estate, but take a look at that video. Like I said, I'll send you guys the link or post it right here so you guys can click on it. But why is this happening? Why does instability in the market happen in the first place? And that'll lend us a clue as to what is actually going on here. The bottom line is that stability in the Twitter fiasco is a great example of how a sudden change to the stability of a platform can impact how people value your platform or the piece of real estate that you are offering, piece of property. Advertisers in the real world take special care in choosing where they advertise their products and services. A simple example is that somebody selling real estate in Illinois is not going to take a lot of focus marketing themselves to Californians, no offense. We can also conceptualize this in dollar values, so we can really get a sense of how much we're talking about here by looking at how many brands have backed out of Twitter recently as the platform that they would like to use for advertising. So far, General Motors, Pfizer, Modellez, which is a parent company of Oreos, Trident Gum, Cadbury Eggs, REI, General Mills, United Airlines, Audi, IPG, the advertising firm for companies like American Express, CVS Pharmacies, Johnson & Johnson, and Spotify. Carlsberg, the beer company, have started pausing advertising on Twitter. And this was just at the beginning of November, so probably by the time you've seen this video, more have backed out. To give context how much money we're talking about, General Motors, which is one of the companies that had paused advertising, spends about $1.7 million every single month advertising on Twitter alone. So this is a lot of cash to pull out. So the question is, with respect to crypto and speculative markets like that, what is the point? Why even bother with these digital assets if they're so shaky? Well, simply put, it has a lot to do with kind of the same attitudes that people had when people started buying up land in America. And this is going way, way back. People see digital real estate in its many forms, from Twitter handles to digital property in the metaverse to crypto, as a new frontier worth pursuing. And likewise, in American history, we can take a look at one of the largest land purchases in this country, which is the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase was a purchase for land in 1803 of 828,000 square miles for about $15 million. That's about $18 per square mile. Pretty good. Kind of reminds me when I got Bitcoin for $16 per Bitcoin. Now it's, even 16,000 is quite the jump in valuation. In my opinion, France got a raw deal. And I could have gotten a better price, because here's a couple of examples of what you can get in the greater Chicagoland area for $15 million today. Check the link in the bio for a complete list of properties at that price point. I set you guys up a little search. You guys can just click around and see what's out there. Take a look at some mansions. But ultimately, this is parallel to what is happening in the digital asset spaces. These are relatively new phenomenon, and I believe that after the initial grand rise of Bitcoin and subsequent Bitcoin-rich culture surrounding it, everyone is searching for the next big opportunity. To buy in early, cash out shortly after something explodes. But lately, the opposite has been true with the aforementioned crashes in Bitcoin, NFTs, digital real estate, and major advertisers pulling presumably millions and millions of dollars out of one of the top advertising spaces on the internet, which was Twitter. So what's the alternative? If you know, I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place to be investing in these types of speculative markets, but remember, they're speculative. You're gambling to an extent. In the stock market, you're gambling. You're always taking some kind of risk. But I like to play things for the long term and play things somewhat safely. That's probably the lawyer in me speaking. But that's what I want for myself and for my clients, is sustainable growth. So what is the alternative? Everybody does want to get rich, whether they want to admit it or not. To some extent, they want to improve their quality of life. But, you know, that actual concept is the driving force behind these phenomenons. It happens all the time in the stock market, although there are certainly regulatory efforts to kind of keep, you know, these hardcore ebbs and flows from happening. These, you know, very sudden jumps and shakiness that the Bitcoin market experiences or the digital real estate market experiences. I mean, you know, we can look at, for example, the Wolf of Wall Street guy, Jordan Belfort. You know, made a lot of money selling those penny stocks to the right people because they bought them, at least to the right people for him. And then after that, he was pinched for securities fraud after a while, and as a result, he could no longer own a stock brokerage. He can't have a license for that. But as of April of 2022, to give you some context of, you know, how these things kind of overlap, the New York Times reported that he is marketing himself as a crypto guru. Now, crypto isn't regulated like the stocks are. Jordan Belfort can do whatever he wants as far as pushing certain cryptos on people or getting the hype behind them. You know, this is, again, all about speculation and confidence. People lost confidence in Twitter, so advertisers pulled out. People lost confidence in Bitcoin, and NFT, so that just started falling. People didn't see the future in it no longer, and you know, it was pumped and then it was dumped, and some people ended up with the bill. I think the lack of regulations in these areas carries considerable risks, and that's what is lowering this value here. People will pay money for security, and that's why you see such extreme volatility in these digital asset markets. There's nothing to hold them down besides people's belief in it. Even further, they're subject to certain scam tactics like pumping and dumping, which is what our wolf got pinched for. And you know, what can we do if there's no oversight to stave off such predators in the market, or predatory tactics, I should say. The alternative, and I may be biased, is investment in real estate and property ownership, and this is because property ownership is one of the oldest concepts here in the United States. The legal framework runs super deep. Much of the property law foundation in the United States was adopted from English law from before the creation of the United States. The earliest cases that we learn about as law students are English cases that describe how land is held and passed on. These old legal frameworks are so very deeply rooted, and that offers you some real security in what you are purchasing. And other people know this. That's why the real estate market holds a little bit tighter than these other markets. These old legal frameworks include the Magna Carta, for example, which states that people subject to rule have rights and can check the power of governments that rule over them to protect those rights. Then before that, even English property law was influenced by Roman law, which created concepts of dominium or ownership, legal concept of ownership in the first place. In American history, as some of you may know, the Declaration of Independence, in making its case, listed 3 examples of inalienable rights that all humans have by their creator. That is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's more interesting is that this phrase originates, at least some scholars say, from the 15th century philosopher John Locke, and this is how I was taught it, who argued in his book, Two Treatises of Government, that political society existed for protecting property, which he stated was life, liberty, and estate. This is a testament to how deeply rooted, 15th century, how deeply rooted the concept of real property ownership is in modern political systems. Furthermore, the beautiful thing about real estate, and if you've been my client, you've heard this, is that there is no copy. One stock can be exactly like another. Bitcoin has different things there, but ultimately a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. But your property is yours because there is no two properties that can sit in the same place. That unique aspect to real estate as an asset provides you with further security that balances your property against changes in the market, whereas NFTs, crypto, and stock are all copies of each other in some senses, and each person can have the same thing or hold that value. There is no leverage against the next asset. There is no opportunity to market yours to the right buyer or to improve its value by renovation, remodeling, construction, or simply waiting for the inevitable development around your property as population continues to rise. After all, the world population just hit 8 billion. It's only getting more crowded around here. But you may ask, Casper, even real-world assets have crashes, so what about 2008? And like I said, I addressed that in that other video, so go and check it out. But CNN reported on the crisis in 2008 and said that the worst-performing markets in Stockton, Merced, and Modesto, California dropped around 32 to 30%. That was a big hit. People recognize that, but that is nowhere close to the 91% devaluation that was reflected in the digital real estate markets that I told you about earlier. On the flip side, you are not going to see this type of increase in valuation that digital asset markets have had in real estate, for example. You're not going to see that big jump in a short time. But, I mean, like I said, when it comes to estate planning and investing, many will tell you that this is a marathon, not a race. And so, making short gains is great, but you're taking on a considerable amount of risk. In most places, the United States had recovered from the housing market crash in 10 years. The median time a person owns a home is about 13.2 years. Additionally, the no down payment programs and adjustable rate mortgages that lured less than qualified buyers are now gone thanks to regulatory programs put into place after 2008. Simply put, there are more qualified buyers in the market, and more qualified buyers are better vetted to know that they're going to pay their mortgage, and so it's less likely that we're going to have this flood of foreclosed properties coming into the market and upsetting the balance of supply and demand to tip over into a crash. And like I said, check out that video if you want to learn more about that. But Casper, I want to get rich right now, so what do? If I want to invest in real estate, I want to get rich in 30 years. What's the point? I want to get rich right now. I want to live the life like all these Bitcoin bros on Instagram. And yeah, hey man, I get it. I like Lamborghinis too. That's sick. I want to go to Dubai as well. That's awesome. But you don't have to wait 10 years. And there's ways to work the real estate market, a market that has a lot more history, a lot more stability than these other markets, so you can make some major money in a short amount of time. Now, keep in mind capital gains tax and all these other things, but remember, you'll have to pay capital gains tax on those gains as well. But what I'll do is below in the link, I will give you a link so you guys can get in contact with me, and we'll give you a free series 101 course on how to invest in property, whether you want to make $30,000 in 3 months or in 3 years. There are ways to do this. You just got to be smart with your money. It's all math at the end of the day and counting for variables. That's what I'm here for. And also analyze the market and figure out what property is going to meet those numbers. At the end of the day, the math has to make sense. It's about counting for variables. It's about accounting for numbers. It's about finding the right property to make those numbers work for you. Investing is a rewarding experience, and life is full of highs and lows, and digital assets, although they may be profitable in the future, and that may be something that you want to get into, I strongly believe that real estate is a great investment for the long term. It's a great way to build equity, and there's a reason why banks will loan you, $300, $500, $1 million to purchase a property, which is always an investment, versus making your bid for a purchase of $1 million in cryptos, for example. And at the end of the day, if the market does dip and ebbs and flows, which it will here and there, during that time, you can still enjoy the property that you're living in. You can still enjoy the passive income that you make from your property and renting it out. There's always a place for you to go grill in your backyard, have a place for your dog, invite the family and friends over for a barbecue, and that's even in the worst of times. So it's not so bad. And if you feel differently, let me know in the comments. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Hope you guys are enjoying the channel so far. Want to give a shout out to all my subscribers. You guys are the bomb. Super appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, you are always free to reach out to me. 224-223-6001. We'll talk to you then.